When the lights go out for good and society fractures into 1,000 desperate pieces, your survival won't depend on how fast you can run or how many rounds you have left. It'll come down to something far more primal, whether you can move through hostile territory without being seen at all. In a world where resources have collapsed and armed groups control every major route, the ability to cross enemy lines invisibly isn't just tactical advantage, it's the difference between making it home and becoming another body left in a ditch. Most people think camouflage is about wearing the right colors or smearing mud on their face. That's not camouflage. That's costume. Real body camouflage is a science of light absorption, pattern disruption, and exploiting the specific weaknesses of human visual perception. And in a grid-down scenario where you're removing through urban ruins or rural checkpoints controlled by people who will kill you for your backpack, understanding this science isn't optional. The foundation of invisibility starts with understanding how the human eye actually detects threats. Our brains are hardwired to recognize three things instantly: geometric shapes that don't belong in nature, movement that breaks the rhythm of the environment, and high-contrast edges that create silhouettes. Every camouflage technique worth knowing exploits one of these three vulnerabilities. The first and most critical technique is mastering three-dimensional disruption, and this goes far beyond slapping on a ghillie suit. Your body is a vertical cylinder in a world of irregular, broken shapes. That cylinder screams human to anyone scanning the area, even subconsciously. To break this, you need to attach irregular, non-symmetrical materials that extend beyond your body's natural outline. Use local vegetation, but here's the key: don't make it look like a bush. Make it look like nothing. Attach dried grass, small branches, and fabric strips at different lengths and angles, focusing on breaking up your shoulders, head, and any part of you that creates a recognizable human profile. The material should be loose enough to move slightly with wind, mimicking natural movement patterns rather than the rigid motion of a person trying to stay still. The second technique is understanding and exploiting light diffusion in different environments. In bright daylight, shadows are your enemy because they create hard contrast. Most people think you hide in shadows. But in a post-collapse world where armed patrols are actively hunting, shadows can betray you. Instead, position yourself in areas of broken light, where sunlight filters through debris, damaged buildings, or tree canopy, creating a dappled pattern. This is where you introduce visual noise into your camouflage by using a technique called micropattern layering. Take charcoal, ash, and light-colored dust, or crushed limestone, and create small, irregular spots across your clothing and exposed skin. These spots should be no larger than a coin and should contrast with each other, not blend into a uniform color. This creates what's called visual confusion, where the human eye struggles to separate your form from the environment because the pattern mimics the random light-tan shadow play of natural surroundings. The key is randomness. Nature never creates patterns that repeat. Your camouflage shouldn't either. The third technique is thermal signature reduction, and this becomes absolutely critical in a scenario where enemy forces have access to thermal optics or are conducting patrols during dawn and dusk when temperature differentials are most visible. Your body radiates heat at approximately 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit, and that signature can be detected through most standard camouflage. To counter this, you need to create a thermal barrier between your body and the outside air. Use layered clothing with an outer shell made of reflective material. But here's what most survival guides won't tell you. That reflective layer needs to be covered with a thin, breathable fabric coated in mud or dirt. The mud layer absorbs and re-radiates heat more slowly than your body does, creating a thermal diffusion effect that makes your heat signature blend with the ambient temperature of the ground. This technique is exhausting and requires you to reapply the mud layer every few hours. But in territories where thermal scopes are present, it's the only reliable defense. The fourth technique is movement synchronization, and this is where psychology meets physics. Human vision is incredibly sensitive to movement that doesn't match the environment's rhythm. If you're crossing through an area with wind moving through grass or debris, your movement must sync with that rhythm exactly. Move only when the wind moves. Stop completely when it stops. This isn't about going slow. It's about going in rhythm. Practice what's called pressure-based movement, where you shift your weight so gradually that no single motion creates a visual disruption. This takes brutal discipline because your nervous system will scream at you to move faster, but speed equals detection, and detection equals death. Combine this with low-crawling techniques where your body stays below the visual horizon line, using terrain features like ditches, rubble piles, or vehicle wreckage to mask your profile completely. The fifth technique is scent neutralization, and in a world without running water and soap, this becomes a serious problem. Human scent carries on air currents for hundreds of yards, and trained dogs or even experienced trackers can detect you long before they see you. To counter this, you need to mask your scent using naturally occurring environmental smells. Crush local vegetation and rub it on your clothing and skin, focusing on high scent areas like your armpits, groin, and feet. Use mud from stagnant water sources, because the bacterial content in that mud creates a strong masking odor that overwhelms human scent. If you're in an urban environment, use ash from burned buildings or the chemical residue from abandoned industrial sites. These scents are so harsh they overload olfactory senses, making it nearly impossible to distinguish your specific human signature. The sixth technique is adaptive pattern matching, and this requires you to become a chameleon based on the specific microenvironment you're moving through. If you're crossing through an area of burned-out vehicles, your camouflage should incorporate charred black streaks and metallic gray tones. If you're moving through overgrown urban areas, use green and brown tones with vertical streaking patterns that mimic plant growth through concrete. The mistake people make is using general camouflage patterns designed for forests or deserts. In a collapse scenario, you're moving through hybrid environments that don't exist in nature anymore. You need to custom build your camouflage for every zone you enter, using materials you find in that specific area. This means stripping and rebuilding your visual profile multiple times during a single crossing. The seventh and final technique is understanding and exploiting the psychological blind spots of the people hunting you. Human attention is finite. Guards get tired, bored, distracted. They scan in predictable patterns, focusing on obvious routes and neglecting areas that seem impassable or unimportant. Your job is to move through those neglected spaces. Cross through areas of rubble that look too difficult to navigate. Use drainage systems, collapsed building interiors, and rooftop-to-rooftop movements that require physical risk but offer complete concealment. This is where your psychological edge becomes tactical advantage. Fear keeps most people on the easy paths, and that's exactly where death waits. When you're implementing these techniques together, you become something that doesn't exist in the normal visual language of human perception. You're not invisible, you're irrelevant. You're noise in a system full of threats, and that's exactly what keeps you alive. But here's the brutal truth. All of this requires practice before collapse happens. You can't learn to move invisibly when bullets are already flying. You need to drill these techniques now, in safe environments, until they become unconscious physical patterns your body executes under stress. The survivors of the next collapse won't be the strongest or the fastest. They'll be the ones who understood that in a world hunting for victims, the ultimate weapon is never being seen at all. Claude is AI and can make mistakes. Please double-check responses. Sonnet 4.5